In lesson 4, we are comparing fractions, and we are using the greater than symbol and the less than symbol to compare fractions. Here we are going to use fraction bars to compare two fractions with like denominators. And so the denominator here in both fractions is fifths. Okay? We have 3/5 and we're comparing it to 4/5. If two fractions have the same denominator, then they're made from unit fractions of the same size. And that just means that each of these little rectangles in both fraction bars are the same size. Fifths, they're in fifths. The fraction, in this case, the fraction with more unit fractions colored in is greater, or the higher number in the numerator is greater. So we can see here that the second fraction bar, or 4/5, is the larger fraction. And in order to write this, we would write our number sentence as it is, 3/5, and we would say is less than 4/5. I had a couple of kiddos having a hard time in class trying to remember which way the symbol goes for greater than and less than, and I gave them a reminder I learned when I was little that was just that the alligator, the open side, the alligator wants to eat the larger number. Here we're comparing fractions with like numerators, that's the top numbers, so we have 2/5 and 2/7. The numerators are both 2. If two fractions have the same numerator, then the number of unit fractions is the same. The fraction with the larger unit fractions is greater. So you can see the number of unit fractions, they both have two boxes shaded in, but you can see that fifths are larger than sevenths. So in order to write this, we would say 2/5 is greater than 2/7. Here we're comparing fractions with unlike denominators, and you can see here in our first fraction comparison, we're comparing 3/4 with 5/8. What we need to do is look for a relationship between the denominators, and we can see here the relationship between 4 and 8. 4 is a factor of 8. So when we have a factor in one of our denominators, we only have to adjust one side. So all we need to do is know that our factor here, 4 is a factor of 8. So 4 times 2 is equal to 8. So anything I do to the top, I do to the bottom. So my fraction now, for comparison, becomes 6/8, because that is an equivalent fraction to 3/4. So it's easy then to compare fractions when the denominators are the same. And we have here 6/8 is greater than 5/8. When we look at 4/5, which is our next one, we have 4/5 and we're comparing it to 5/7. When we look at the denominators 5 and 7, 1 is the only number that's a factor for both of them. So we have to take the product of those two numbers. So that means we're multiplying them by each other. So we're going to times this side by 7, if I can, and this side by 5. So 7 times 4 is equal to 28. 7 times 5 is 35. We're going to do the same thing, remember top and bottom. 5 times 5 equals 25, and 7 times 5 equals 35. Now that we have the same denominator for both of these, we can compare them. And we have 28/35, and we're comparing it to 25/35. We now know 28/35 is greater than 25/35. So our original number sentence, 4/5 is greater than 5/7. We're now going to move down to comparing 7/9 and 5/6. We know when we look at 9 and 6 that 3 is a factor of both of those, but we don't have to go all the way to the product. The least common denominator we can get here is going to be 18. We know that 6 times 3 is going to get us to 18, and we know that 9 times 2 is going to get us to 18. So this fraction then changes. The denominator, of course, is 2 times 9 equals 18, and then we have the numerator, 2 times 7 equals 14. On the other side, we have 5 times 3 equals 15, and we have 6 times 3 is 18. So now we have common denominator, and we can compare the two. 14/18 compared to 15/18. So we know 14/18 is less than 15/18. So in the original number sentence, 7/9 is less than 5/6.